Today we're going to talk through incentive compensation programs for contractors and the things that really work, and actually we're going to touch on a lot of things that don't work. How we're going to approach this is we've put together 12 of the most common questions that we get about incentive compensation programs. We're going to be talking through those with three of us, with myself, David Brown, with Courtney Stearns and Sue Weiler-Doak. And what you're going to hear is even the three of us have some different perspectives. And I think the core takeaway, and I want to frame this, is there's not one right incentive comp program that works for every single contractor. And those programs even have to change over time. So as you're listening to these, don't try and listen to it from a prescriptive standpoint. Listen to it from an intent standpoint and what underlying behaviors are both required for the incentive compensation program to work, as well as what behaviors that incentive program will tend to drive. So we'll get started. Just a little bit about each of the three of us. I'll get started. My name's David Brown. I've been in the industry since 1988. I came up through kind of the standard field route. So started out as a craftsperson, apprentice, electrician, field management, and moved into division management at a large electrical contractor in Northern California. There's a lot that you learn along the way, and including some of the behaviors that, especially with incentive comp programs, some of the behaviors that get driven positive and negative from incentive comp programs. And also, I think one of my biggest takeaways was that some incentive programs work incredibly well when everything's going right, but you want to actually design an incentive comp program that works really well and drives the right behaviors when things go wrong, because in any business, construction especially, things will go wrong, and you need the compensation program that will drive those proper behaviors. With Courtney, I want to point out before Courtney does talks about himself, I want to point out that Sue and I, in our pictures, we just have pretty much blank backgrounds. Now, for Courtney, that's Hawaii in the background. So if you really want to understand who you should listen to, you should listen to Courtney probably, because that's a good incentive that he's got. But anyways, with that said, Courtney, a little bit about yourself and your involvement with incentive comp programs.
Well, I've been working with contractors for well over 30 years, actually closer now to 40 years. Unfortunately, it's kind of surprising. And what David said is a lot of the work that I've done over the years with contractors is directly related to establishing an incentive program that actually works. And it is different for every single company. Culture of the company is impacted to the good or to the bad with a well defined or poorly defined incentive compensation program. My experience is pretty rich with respect to integrating field and office and management level reporting systems, so in such a way that they impact behavior in a way that any given person who is looking for their incentive compensation program can tie their work behavior to their incentive, benefiting all the stakeholders of an incentive program. So it's actually pretty exciting. It's one of the most rewarding elements of my interaction with clients is when you see these incentive programs actually impacting behavior to the good. And it's rewarding because the individuals that are executing and benefiting from that incentive program are motivated to work with one another, and it's exciting for them. And I get probably some of my greatest satisfaction for seeing people really step up to the plate and execute what they know how to do it well, do it in alignment, and do it consistently.
That's awesome. And I think one of our core mission, as we stated, is helping contractors build stronger businesses for the next generation. And I'm like Courtney, I absolutely love seeing a rising star manager, be able to go out there and buy a house and start a family and do all those things using money from an incentive comp program that we help put in place, or and then years later being able to go purchase the company, or portion of the company based on that incentive comp program. So yeah, that's I love where your heart's at on that. Sue, a little bit about your background, and I know you're giving a talk coming up this week on all of the perks and benefits and everything kind of beyond base compensation that helps both with employee recruitment as far as retention and driving results. So if you could talk a little bit about yourself and just a quick summary to frame everything of all of the things that would encompass incentive compensation.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, so my name's Sue Weiler-Doak. I've been in the construction industry for 30 plus years. David and I laugh that I did my first retirement after 31 years with a large international construction company. Had worked many places in many of the divisions. Have seen a lot of things work, a lot of things that don't work. And when it comes to incentive programs, the older companies, those that have been around forever, seem to have worked out most of the kinks. But like Courtney and David both said, they've worked out the kinks for their particular company that matches with their particular culture. It may take a few iterations to get it exactly right. One thing I always like to look at is talking about having an incentive program that works in good times and in bad times. It really needs to be a well thought out equation, right? Whatever that equation might be, the things need the parts of the program need to be identifiable. They need to be quantifiable. They need to be so clear that no one really even misunderstands any portion of the program, right? So that way, whether it's a really good year, maybe not a great year, everybody knows where they stand in that. So the less complicated sometimes is better. But each program is going to be different based off the culture of that company. And it's amazing because incentive programs, although most of the time we talk, okay, how's somebody going to get a check in their hand, right? The money, as Courtney said, well, you can actually tie the work behavior to the incentive that you are receiving. Most of the time we look at that as being very specific to cash, to some sort of I can go buy something with this incentive. But when we look at the larger kind of beyond compensation package, that's when you start looking into continuing education. You start looking into the types of benefits that you offer. You look at, do you pay for PE or CPA certifications? What type of mentorship program do you have? Is there an internal development leadership university that you offer? So remember that incentive programs are cash-based, and others are more of the intangibles that help with the internal development of that person as a leader and actually as a person themselves, right? Because a happy employee is one who's going to be around for a long time. Those are the people that you want inside your own compensable incentive program. David?
Yeah, a great point on that. And so as we go through these and we're talking about them, don't think of incentive compensation just in monetary terms, like you're handing somebody a check or even deferred compensation. Laszlo Bock in Work Rules, he's the head of people at Google. He said, one of the points that he made in his book, Work Rules, is excellent. Definitely recommend that for anybody. But when it comes to their incentives, when you ask people what they want, everybody says, I want cash. But he said that the problem is that you give somebody cash and that'll go into all kinds of things. That'll go to just their normal daily expenses. But it's really what holds teams together and what gives people joy in their lives are really experiences. And so one of the best things that you can do that people won't ask for is find a way to go give them some type of perk, benefit, experience that they wouldn't have done on their own. And so because that will actually, as Sue said, drive both development of the people, but also drive alignment of the team and hold everybody together. So don't think about the things that we're talking about in cash terms only. That's a first mistake. Sue, anything else on that before we dive into our first question?
Oh, I tell you, when you open the floodgates, there there are hundreds of ways to incentivize people and their development. Really, it would be a much longer conversation, but always be thinking outside the box of whether that's helping them continue their education to get their master's degree or a graduate degree, or whether that is helping someone become an internal speaker at your internal development, quote, university, right? Giving them the opportunity to bring their knowledge, that transfer of institutional knowledge forward. There are so many things and so many ways to do that without costing a lot of cash for the company. That would be just a great next conversation to have. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll have another set of recordings that come up that talk about those other types of things. So.
Well, you're having that on Thursday morning. So for those that are attending Thursday morning, that'll be an excellent breakfast.